Recording in progress. All right.
Yes. What's up, brother?
Man.
I missed you last week. I was so bummed. Like sometimes every once in a while, I'll see patients that come in from out of state,
Hmm.
and then my staff will schedule them to do like just a teleconference call or a phone call in like 3 to 4 weeks after I see them.
Hmm.
And they had two scheduled for me last week, and I was like, oh.
Yeah.
So I was at the office a little bit later than usual, but
I it was hectic last week. And going into here's the thing. Let's see. Oh, there we go. I just figured out on Zoom how to hide the self view so I'm not staring at my own stupid face. Now I just
nice.
see you. I just learned that today. And
Well, every time we've done this, I my little face is up here in the corner, and I get to stare at you the whole time, which is great.
oh, this new one doesn't even, I don't even have my window. I just see your window. And
Oh,
I'm
that's
already,
great.
this is all already, um, I'm drinking
Cracking open
seltzer,
a
which
cold
is
one.
off brand, whatever. Um, I'm way better. I feel more focused when it's just the audio.
Yeah,
That doesn't mean that's just my preference. That's why, like, when we start posting these, in fact, I was actually talking to somebody 2 weeks ago,
hmm,
last week. Oh, this is going to show up on the recording. Close that window. Because the one thing I don't want to do is, I don't, it's not, actually, that's not true. It's not that I don't want to do it. I don't have the time right now to set aside to like learn how to kind of edit it. I would like to learn how to edit them, or make them not just so much edit, but edit them for effectiveness. Meaning, like
yeah.
this one person, what does he do for work? He is he's a software designer, software engineer. User, like he had some real insight into how to post what thumbnails should look like, if there's going to be chapters, how it, you know what I mean, and
Hmm.
what the tagline should and shouldn't be. He had some really good insight. I just want to post like the raw audio,
Yeah.
well, or the video too, to start, and he didn't see my vision for that, but he was thinking of a more polished product, and that doesn't necessarily, I don't think it has to be polished, but
Well, is he referring to like how most of the podcasts when they post, they'll have their full episodes, but they'll also have their shorts with
yeah.
thumbnails where it's like, oh, in this 20 minutes they're talking about DNC 93, or something like that.
That was part of it.
Yeah,
That was part of it.
because
Anyway,
most of the podcasts I watch are kind of split up like that. If you want to watch like the shorter versions, it's like, oh, I want to hear them talking about that,
I like that.
that type of thing.
Yeah, he had more experience with that kind of stuff. I haven't thought much about that stuff at all.
That's
What I,
cool.
what I have noticed though, it doesn't matter what time I set aside for it or don't set aside for it. We have the standing appointment of Wednesday at 8:30, 9:30 there. And
Hmm.
then and every this is the whole point of this stupid story, was that every like, even yesterday, might have been Monday, like earlier in the week, I just could feel, I'm like, something's gonna come up. Like, that happens every week.
Yeah,
I don't know why. No, there's only one or two other areas of my life where I schedule something and it's something that I'm looking forward to, and then I think, something's gonna try to like if I set time aside to go to the temple and do service in the temple, I know without fail, something is going to something's going to come up that's going to try to distract me from it every single
right.
time. And that happens here too with our weekly chats.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's why I got bummed when I texted you last week. I was like, I don't know if I can get home on time because I'm still gonna be on a Zoom call in my office with a patient up until about the time we're supposed to start. And yeah. So I had a nice chat with my staff and let them know Wednesdays are off limits from now on.
Ooh, good
And
boundary.
they were totally fine with it. They're like, "Oh, okay. Yeah, we're good."
How was your you had a staff party? Was it an anniversary? What was the
No, it
occasion?
was so every I always throw a Christmas party. Um But every once in a while, we like to get together at some point during the summer. So we call it the end of summer barbecue,
Hmm.
and it was awesome. We had everybody over. I did my twice fried extra crispy chicken wings and some steak for everybody,
Oh, that's
and it
good.
was it was just a good time. It's and more than anything, it's just to show appreciation for these. I don't want to call them kids because they're not kids anymore. I mean these folks have been working with me for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And just to be able to show any amount of appreciation that isn't financial from what I pay them already, just to tell them I love them. So I invited them all over to my house and had everything all prepped up. And it was like around noon, and
Hmm.
we threw a barbecue, and it was awesome. We got to hang out for a couple hours and got to tell them that I love them, and it was awesome. It turned out really well.
Wow.
Yeah.
So your average, how many employees?
So I always include myself because that's part of like a business, like especially small business and what I do. I
Hmm.
chart myself as a W-2 employee, but aside from myself, I have 7 employees.
And the average length of time, have they all been with you from the beginning?
There have been 4 of them for about the last 8 years when I split from my original business partner. So my partner, Dr. Hatch, and I started the neuro clinic in 2013. And we worked together for about 5 years before we realized that, we needed to grow apart. And so basically from the tail end of 2017 to 2018, that's where we branched off. And
Wow.
4 of those employees have been with me since the beginning of 2018, which has been awesome.
That's
I think
crazy.
I think the shortest tenured employee that I have is pushing like 3.5 to 4 years now at this point, which is really cool.
That's kind of amazing.
It is. That's kind of unheard of, actually.
It
So
is.
I'm at a point right now where I don't want to say scrambling because I was just watching this Grant Cardone 10x, like how are you scaling your business and where is it that you find you plateau, and things get frozen in your progression of where you want to go, and all these guys are talking about money. That really isn't super important to me, but they make good points about taking care of people around you. And with conversations I've had with my employees, there are certain expectations of, okay, what's next? What's next? What's next? And there's a raise after a raise after a raise that I can give these folks. And I'm kind of just waiting until the point where they're like, okay, I need to move on and go do something else, but it's not happening. And that's what's really kind of unheard of with this whole process. And I'm so grateful because these guys are awesome.
So it's interesting because what I'm thinking about as you're like it, I was, I had to take a moment and reflect. Wait a second. That kind of is unheard of. And especially from a smaller entrepreneurial small business setting,
Hmm.
except that it doesn't shock me because I grew up in a home. So my father is he's retired now, but he's a geologist, and for many years he worked for a soil engineering company.
Hmm.
And then him and two or three, I guess it was three technically, and then a fourth, broke off from that company that was SoCal Soil and Testing, and then
Hmm.
they started a company called Christian Wheeler Engineering. And so,
Were those all based out of San Diego
yeah, these were
area?
all people that, yeah. So my father, like, he graduated BYU, and then went and then served 3 or 4 years in the army, and then came to San Diego to he did his graduate work. He got his master's in geology at San Diego State,
Hmm.
and so started. I think that was the only company. I've never thought about it like that. I've always thought about it. That might have been the only company he worked for out of college. I need to ask him that. I mean, I
Hmm.
think that's right. I don't think he worked for anybody. Whoa. So he worked for SoCal Soil and Testing as a junior geologist, and then worked his way up, um, and then met these other two guys, and then I forget what year. I guess it was in the '90s, but they started a company called Christian Wheeler Engineering, and so it's technically it should be he's the third partner in a in a in that company, and so
Hmm.
they started that company, and that company still exists, and many of the people that worked for the first geology company, maybe not many, but a lot of people went over to work for Christian Wheeler Engineering, and that company still they both still exist. But the average number of years that the employee has been at Christian Wheeler Engineering is a long time. Like it's
Hmm.
their like we still go, like I'll still go. I worked for my dad part time, making like side money in high school, like digging literally like digging holes and getting soil samples, like digging ditches. And I loved it. That was like
Nice.
that was some of my favorite work. Um, and I'll still go to their annual anniversary
Yeah.
holiday party kind of thing, and everyone's like, "Oh, hey," you know what I mean? So anyway, it's a family, and
Yeah.
that's just like they were never like heavy-handed about it. They just treated people with respect, and it's like people just haven't left, and they've just
Yeah.
stayed with the company for a long time, and a number of people have retired with that company.
Yeah.
So
The folks that have left are, the young receptionist that I had that when she first started working with me, she, was engaged. They get married, pregnancy, she goes on because husband's working in as a contractor and he's starting his own business. And so I'll lose someone that way. But it's kind of funny, the group I've got around me, it almost seems like every year we get together for our Christmas party and it's like, where did this year go?
yeah, yeah,
And
that's
then all of
all.
a sudden it's like one year becomes two and three, four, five, and it's like, oh, it's such a cool family experience.
And do all of you live in generally the same area, or are
Uh-huh.
some people coming from farther away?
No, I'm in Cedar Hills. My office is in Lehigh. We have most of my staff is Orem, Provo, Orem, Saratoga Springs, so we're all really close. They have to commute, funny enough, they commute way farther than I do to my office, but they're troopers, man. It's fun. It's fun.
That's awesome. Oh, that reminds
So,
me. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there.
yes.
We're flying in this Sunday night. Can I stay at your
Okay.
house on Sunday night?
100%.
We get in like the flight gets in at like 9. We're flying into
Okay.
Salt Lake City.
Yeah, do you need a ride too? I can come pick you up.
No, we're going to rent a car. By
Okay.
the way, did you know that Costco, you can rent car if you have a Costco membership, you can just rent cars
I did not know that. That's good to
like
know.
through their app. Like it's the Costco. It's like you go to the Costco app. I'm all over the place. I've just learned this. I've had a Costco membership for a long time, and my friend Julie was like, "Just what do you?" Because I was looking up like all these random things, and she's like, "Just
Right.
go to the Costco app, and you can just like you're going. It's gonna be there at the airport, but it's the
Yeah.
Enterprise or whatever it is, but through Costco, and it's really I
Way
was like,
like cheaper. A
yeah,
little
I don't
bit
know.
cheaper.
It's kind of amazing that they even thought to do that, but
Yeah, of course. So the only
okay.
thing I have Sunday, we have our meetings from 9 to 11. We'll be done by then. I'm going to meet up with a couple mission buddies that I haven't seen in months, and so we were like, this has been enough. We need to get together. We're gonna have like a lunch dinner, but yeah, we'll be back home. Yeah, early afternoon, late afternoon. So yeah, come over, stay, please. That'd be fun.
Oh, that's cool. I'll call you tomorrow.
Okay.
Actually, when's a good time to? Do you have? When would be a good time to call you tomorrow? In the evening?
Yeah, evening. Just
so
tomorrow evening.
so we
Give
don't
me a
waste our
ring.
time talking about it here. But yeah, that's a lot. That'd be a lot of fun. I thought about you. Thought about you, man. I thought about you as I was prepared. So I gave a talk on
Yes, I
in
wanted to hear about
church,
your talk.
and I recorded it. I haven't listened to it. Man, it is interesting what we do. It's so interesting to me in the church. It was on. I don't know of many places in the world that are like the format and structure of our sacrament meetings, where we have the 2 or 3 talks given from people, from members of the congregation. Like it's kind of like pro level public speaking. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it was, and I've given talks before. I'm not uncomfortable, but there's always that moment, like a surreal moment. You stand up there, and it feels like 10 feet in the sky because you. But I mean, it's probably 3 or 3.5,
right.
4 feet. You're up on the stand on the podium with the microphone, and it's yeah, it was really cool. It was the first time that I can remember that I was asked to give a talk in church on a portion of the scriptures that I'm really, really familiar with. Usually
Uh-huh.
it's you get an assignment to teach or talk on something, and it's like, oh, I haven't thought about that in a while. I haven't read about that in a while. And it becomes this learning experience.
Right.
This was, I was like, oh, I'm familiar with this section because it's one of my, it might be my most favorite. I don't know, but it's something that I really connected with when I was young, and it's like carried me through. And so it was just me and another brother who I know a little bit, not super well, but in fact, he reminded me when he got up. I was first, and his name is Will Riggins, and he got up second, and he said, you do the little intro comments or whatever, and he's like,
Yeah.
yeah, Kendall DJ'd our wedding reception. I was like, oh,
No
I
way.
forgot. Yeah, I'd forgotten all about that,
That's
and I forgot he
awesome.
made some joke, and it was funny, but
Wait, so did you guys get to split the entire post-sacrament ordinance
it was just us. It
speaking
was just
time?
two, yeah, which
That's
was really
awesome.
nice because so like 15 to 17 minutes,
Yeah.
which is that's a good length of time. Usually, I'm always if I don't speak off, if I don't write something out, if I try to speak off the cuff, which I'm fine doing, I'll go way over. I'll be too
Yeah.
like I'm already scattered like naturally, so like I won't stay on topic and I'll go over time, and I really hate that. So I
Yeah.
wanted to like I just wanted to I wanted to bring it under time, and that was fine. We talked about light and truth, and how yeah, it was great. We talked about light and truth and grace, and yeah, it was really like I basically wrote 5 talks, like five like yeah, like 5 half baked ideas of talks, and then I didn't use any of it. But like all
Yeah.
of and then I ended up talking about something else entirely. But
Yeah.
that was really interesting.
I love that. I mean, when it comes to prep for that, so because I've done that maybe once or twice in my life when I've been asked to speak. And one of my favorite ones was I was asked to speak on the restoration and the
Ooh.
coming forth of the Book of Mormon. And I got to split the time with my wife. And so it was Molly and I, and this was way like had just been married. We were both selling pest control in Seattle
Whoa.
during a summer between semesters when we had to come back to BYU. We'd just been married, and that was such a cool experience. But the one thing, as you were saying that, one of my favorite books I've ever read, and I still adhere to this day, is like part of my own personal gospel, is the Teaching by the Spirit by G.N.R. Cook. Have you ever read that book?
I have not. I'm
So
familiar with, I know who that is, but
look it up because that has been the playbook for any type of public speaking opportunity that I get to participate in, and I plan on kind of adhering by those principles for the rest of my life. And if I were to barrel like the book down in a nutshell, his advice is treasure up the word like the scriptures teach us to do. And if you need something as a prompt, just get like a little 3 by 5 note card and just put some real solid thoughts down on that card
Ooh.
in your preparation to give the talk, and so that when you stand up on the pulpit, you don't have like a 4-page document where you're flipping through and you're reading through your talk, but you have prompts, and then you let that, and that's the reason why that's the most beautiful title of that book is Teaching by the Spirit, and just letting the Spirit work through you and teach.
This is so interesting. That's very interesting because of that's what I ended up doing, sort of.
It was probably something by the Spirit.
Yeah, it wasn't. I'm at my best if I can get out of my own way, and that's
Right.
because the speaking off the cuff or speaking extemporaneously or off of a bullet point list or off of prompts can lend itself to being too casual and not preparing enough. But what you just said is the advice is treasure up the word. So that's implied that there's been study. So be very familiar.
Deep study. Yeah.
Yeah. And so my like comfort, and I'm not always comfortable speaking up there like that, but the comfort that like the confidence of like, I'm like, I already know this material and I had a particular direction I wanted to take it in.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never really experienced that level of like, oh, and this is how I know that I was kind of on the right track.
Mm-hmm.
I get up there, say my intro, I think, formalities like, and I can really go off just on that, but I wanted to get to the point. I think I stated the title. I said the title of the topic and the title is the glory of God is light and truth, or it's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine. That was
Nice.
And I said, I don't know. I was just kind of like, I don't really know where this is going to go, but this is what I said. It makes me feel, I get a lot comfortable if I can call out. So like in job interviews, and I don't even know if this is a good tactic, but job interviews now are all entirely like on Zoom and Teams and video, almost like
Right.
for the most part. And it's incredibly absurd. It's really weird. It's really awesome, but I have to address it before I can feel comfortable. Like if I'm in it, and I don't know if that's a professional thing to do, but it makes me go, we have to address that this is weird and great, and now we'll move on. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
we're staring at each other's faces on the screen. That's wild.
Yeah.
And this is a professional job interview, or like I'm standing. I was standing up there, and I was like, this is we. Oh, and then I'll say, I need to hit these 3 points. I need you to know that this is where I'm trying to go. I wanted to talk about light and truth. I wanted to talk about telescopes. I had an analogy and something I wanted to share about telescopes, and then I wanted to talk about I can't remember what the third thing is. I'm not gonna, you know what I mean?
Grace.
I'm gonna say this and this and this. Yes, that's exactly what it is. Actually, I'm like, I want to make sure that we talk about the phrase grace, learning from grace to grace, increasing or progressing grace from grace. Like that's how it's written. I wanted,
Yeah.
and that was and it ended up being that the other brother talked. That's what my friend Brother Riggins talked about too.
That's one question I had for you was because you spoke first, how was that spiritual connection between your ending of the talk and Brother Riggins taking off on the talk?
As I was standing there looking at my notes, I realized I can talk about what you just described. I said I can talk about this. I don't have to just read this. Like I feel like I wanted to read. I feel like I have to give myself a doctrinal foundation, or else I'll just be up there pontificating, and I don't want to. No one wants to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew I could talk about it. I could talk about here are the essential ideas that like it gets right to the point, unlike other scriptures, and it draws these amazing synonyms. It's it's very clear about light and truth, and the spirit of truth and Christ are all interchangeable. They all come from Christ. And everything that is everything that powers everything, literally the reason that there is existence is because of the light of Christ. And then what that means is that also because the elements are eternal, spirit is eternal, that means truth is eternal, and light and truth together invite more intelligence.
Yes.
And we increase in intelligence. But Christ was in the beginning with the Father since the beginning, and so were we. You have always been you. I have always been me in some version. Like, even though it was spirit, and we were at whatever point we came into existence, it kind of implies that's not really what happened. We've kind of always been. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's interesting. And the example I wanted to use about the telescopes was I recently, you and I have talked about this a lot. everything in society today, everything is great and terrible.
Yeah.
Like, social media is great and it's also terrible, and it's also great. Costco is great, but on a Saturday at 11:37 a.m. it's terrible.
It's terrible. Yeah.
Like, you gotta be kidding me. You know what I mean? Like, and there's like lots of silly examples, but everything's like terrible and great all at the same time. And that sort of chaos is the opposite of light. Dark isn't necessarily the opposite of light. If light is truth and the spirit of truth, that implies that dark isn't just in opposition to light. There is something that dark represents an opportunity. And I was talking about social media, and I recently followed, and I've been reading a little bit on the James Webb telescope, and there's a new one that I found out about in Chile, Santiago, way up in the mountains of Chile, the Vera Rubin Observatory. And then I was reading about this woman, Vera Rubin, who it's named after. Vera Rubin was an astronomer. She was born in the 1920s. She died in 2016. She would be about the age of President Russell M. Nelson if she was still alive. So that's how
about 101 years old.
Right.
Ish.
She decided from a very early age that she wanted to be an astronomer, and she was also her cultural background. She's Jewish, and everybody you can imagine, everyone told her, don't go into science, go into art, go into teaching. You're a woman. You know what I mean? Like, great resistance every step of the way. And the reason she's famous, and they named the observatory after her, is what she discovered was she started to observe, and this is in the late 40s and in the early 50s. She observed that there was we used to think that the Big Bang as an idea scattered all of the many billions of galaxies that we observe through our telescopes. Right. They aren't spread. It's not random. And she made specific observations about the way galaxies rotate around each other, and they tend to group up.
Right.
And a bunch of other really advanced, like, this is the lamest way to describe it. She was the first one to like put research to it and data to it, and nobody wanted to talk about it.
Right.
It's described that it was upsetting the established order of the way we observe the other, millions of galaxies, light years, and all of this stuff. What she was discovering was at the level of what Copernicus did when Copernicus said, I think the sun is at the center and we're all rotating around the sun. And that was heresy. So this is the modern day version of that, and she's a woman, and nobody wanted to listen to her. And it turns out she's right. And then she was the first person to discover and observe, or give credence to the idea of dark matter, or like there's something else out there that we can't see yet. And so these telescopes are able to use filters and infrared and all this fancy and lots of fancy math and now we can see things that we never knew were there that have always been there. That was my big great point. That was my whole big point. And I'm like, it takes me a while to arrive at a point, but I'm like, this is what the universe literally is. That we can stare at a piece of sky of blackness and think that that's all that is. The light's over there and that's dark and there's nothing there, until we look at it differently and we find that, and we see that like the darkest places, the darkest corners of the universe, the darkest corners of our souls. I didn't say it like that, but you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
In the dark is the greatest opportunity and exists the greatest in light, or things that are enlightening.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I love that. I was just thinking about, that's why I was looking over, because I was looking at my phone. I was like, what was that one telescope called before the Webb? Hubble, right? So that's what I was searching for, was like the Hubble telescope. And I remember when I was a kid, everyone always loved to listen to Neil A. Maxwell's talks, because he would touch on stuff like this all the time. And at least from what I can remember growing up, is the whole concept that was like blowing people's minds of, the stars in the firmament and the universes and the galaxies that outnumbered the grains of sand on Earth. Like, people were actually like crunching those numbers together to figure out, man, like, have you ever walked the beach? Yeah, of course, you live in San Diego. It's like, I've spent plenty of time in California walking a beach. And to try to help people conceptualize the grandeur of God and the greatness of God, and the fact that his creations outnumber even the grains of sand on all the beaches that cover the entire Earth's surface, was something that was coming to light with Hubble and the science and technology around that time. But also, like, to your point, like reaching out and finding those things, those dark areas that we didn't know much about, now we're finding out about. Those are profound things to think about. And I think we brought this up in one of our last conversations too, when I was talking to my Sunday school class and I asked them, can you guys even concept or think about the concept of eternity? Like, or how do you feel when you try to do that? Is that overwhelming for you? Does it give you anxiety? Does it cause any nervousness? Like, can you even wrap your mind around that? And I still, to this day, if I spent time to actually meditate about the greatness and the grandeur of the expansion of learning about darkness and light, it becomes overwhelming, almost to the point where it's like I'm still not ready to comprehend that concept. But I find it fascinating, because, and that's what makes me want to learn more about it, is because of, I guess you would say, like a conceptual limit to understanding what all this stuff actually means.
Well, that's what I wonder. Which is interesting to me, because it seems like, and I don't know how to say this without sounding like there's just certain parts of the gospel that are interesting to me.
Yeah.
Not one above the other, but just that are like, that speak to me, and I think probably a lot of people experience that. I pay attention more so now. I try to pay attention to like what are the topics that people like. I'm kind of interested in like topics or ideas that not make people uncomfortable, but you can kind of tell that people shy away from certain topics. Mm-hmm. People don't want to talk. People aren't, I don't want to say they don't want, I don't know how to, I'm still figuring out how to think about this and frame this. People aren't accustomed to, I mean, that's what it is. They're not accustomed yet to speaking so frequent, not casually, but frequently about some of the more like, well, I mean, something like literally like the idea of the second coming.
Yeah.
And the world has done a good job of like making that a punchline or making it seem like it's not real, or anyone that believes in that, or anyone that believes in any form of Christianity is like, you know, like,
Well, there's been movies made about it, right? It's like Waiting for Superman. Like, have you ever seen that documentary? It's called Waiting for Superman.
no.
And you'll hear like critics, I guess, if you want to say critics, talk about, hey, guess what? If you look back at any religious, whether it's Hindu, Muslim, whatever religion, like it's all the same story. And
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's never happened. Like we're all waiting for the same thing. And it's like, so the naysayers are those in the big and spacious, great and spacious building, like point their finger and like, you guys are idiots because you're waiting for this thing to happen and it never happens. It's never going to happen. What are you waiting for? And that's kind of the whole premise of Waiting for Superman.
But there is kind of, I can see, I can identify with part of that.
Hmm.
You're not the, like, it's never going to happen. Like, don't be so simple minded.
Right.
I'm not talking about that, but the idea of like people just waiting around, like their ticket's already been punched
Hmm.
or something. Do you know what I
Yep.
mean? Like
Yeah.
like, and I'm not mocking anything. I can identify, like, I'm like, because I also don't agree with this idea that like there's kind of this we have this linear way of thinking about age. We have this, like, we're forced to observe and live through time linearly because
Right.
that's the nature of reality right now. But that this idea that spiritual progression is is like, there's like, I don't like, there's like levels, and now that we've come through something, we've learned how to do something difficult, and now we're gonna move on to the next thing that's more difficult, and everything just gets more difficult and difficult. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think our capacity increases. So complex ideas lead to more complex and nuanced ideas, but there's a but it's also, I think it's more simple than that. Do you know what
Hmm.
I mean? Not like, yeah, so, yeah, I was in a conversation with a friend recently, and she said, well, and I think what she was expressing was, well, we're not, just because we happen to have the belief that we are eternal beings, that we have eternal spirits, and we've never not lived. It's not, we shouldn't
Right.
even use the words before, because before and after are words that denote a linear passing of time.
Time.
And
Yeah.
that's just earth time. We've always been, but like this idea that like we have, like, it's harder, and now it's harder, and it's harder.
Hmm.
And it just gets harder. Like, I don't know if that's exactly, I think there's something to that, but I think it's probably a lot more simple.
Yeah.
I,
I,
I
I
and I
think
don't know how
it's
to I also don't know how to talk about it without like getting, like, being annoyed with myself. Do you know what I mean? Like I've all of a sudden come to, like, a couple of years ago I got my life together, and now I'm on some spiritual quest. Then I have some insight that nobody else has. But
right.
there are things that, like, I do have a sense of urgency about learning now that I've never had before. And
Right.
I see people, like, I can look back on the times of my life where I've stunted my own growth educationally, physically, spiritually, whatever. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. 100%. 100%. But I think that goes to the whole point of the talk you gave on Section 93, talking about the eternities and recognizing, which is something I brought up as you were talking about how you were preparing for that talk and sharing thoughts from that section, was the scriptures I shared at the end of that section in 93 that talked about how God has always known us, that that we have always been uh, the organization of the intelligences for the eternities. And so I agree with you. Speaking about before and after is it's tough. But when you're able to clear your mind and put yourself in certain situations, I think at least the position I'm in right now, which I'm super fascinated about, is uh, discerning truth and righteousness versus evil and I don't even want to say darkness, like earlier in our conversation, the things that we've had to talk about, but um, seeing things as adversarial versus I don't know if you want to say Christian, just from the definition of like from Christ,
But we have
from
to
light
though.
and truth.
But that's true though. Like we had that I agree with saying it like that because at a
Right.
certain point we have to there's certain like there's I don't think there's any virtue ultimately in shying away from things that are true.
Right.
They're
Right.
true. They're eternally. That's what section one thing section 93 is about. There is truth, and then there's it doesn't say it like this, but there's truth. There's things that are true, and then there's eternal truth. Like that's and when we speak with confidence or testify or give examples of I know that this is true and because I felt that it was true and then I followed that feeling. I didn't just go, well, I believe that I feel that it's true. And then that's
Yeah.
it. That's obviously not that's not how faith works or like
Oh man.
or pursuit. The pursuit of if this is true, it feels true. And what's the test for something being true? Feels a certain way, it sounds a certain way, it lines
Oh,
up with certain other things. It might be like it's enlightening to the level of even being uncomfortable, or
right.
whatever. I think it's individual, but then when something is true, it's never, and that's it.
Right.
Actually, because something is true, it only can lead to other truth of other things because truth in this context is light. And
Right.
light just doesn't go and stop. Do
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah. I would add, and that's why I scrambled. I actually brought my written scripts out today
Ooh,
instead of relying on my phone. Because
nice.
I always like using the hard copies, which is really fun. But that just reminded me is like even as a missionary, as you're trying to teach people, because that's something that I've learned in spending time talking with people, on a spiritual basis, even in work, when I'm trying to tell people, which is something I'd like to get to before we're done chatting, which
Yeah.
is something I alluded to last time we talked, of hitting some principles that are like pretty mind-blowing when it comes to talking about the word of wisdom and actual like physical care for your body. So in section 89. But I remember even days back working and teaching people as a missionary is like even so I know I'm all over the place right now, but working as a missionary, but then coming home as a missionary and then working in the MTC and working with kids that were getting ready to go serve a mission. One of the most common questions that I always had was, how do I know that I'm being taught the truth? How do I know that I'm feeling the spirit? Which is really the crux of that all, because we know as we're taught through all the gospels, and I think through many religions would agree with this concept, is that the truth is spoken through the the Holy Ghost of our Father in heaven, who is the member of the Trinity. So whether you want to think of the Trinity as three separate personages or one being, the concept is still the same, is that the Spirit of God will teach you all truth and righteousness. And that's taught through all the scriptures. And in Galatians 5 is one of my favorites in chapter 2, where it talks about the fruits of the Spirit are joy, love, long suffering, temperance, patience, right? And against such there is no law.
Hmm.
So if you're going to have a spiritual experience, it's not that the Lord's going to throw a tornado over your house and rip the roof off your house and then throw an angel right in your room. Like, could that happen? Sure. But is that the normal experience that we always have when we're searching for truth? I would say no. So when we find and discover truth through the power of discernment, it's through those feelings that we get of joy and peace and happiness and love. And one of my favorite scriptures, which is what I cracked open right here, is I love the book of Romans. I love a lot of the things that the Apostle Paul in his epistles when he's writing to these people in all these different cities. Romans by far is one of the most profound books of scripture, and I'll take that to my grave. Chapter 8 specifically is so special because this is really where I think a big part of us realize our potential and who we actually are. Starting in verse 16, the Spirit itself beareth witness with our own spirit that we are the children of God. And if children, then heirs, heirs of God, and joint heirs with Christ, if so be that we suffer with him, that we may also be glorified together. For I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us. And that's such a powerful statement as you're searching through what is demonic, what is evil, what is true, what is coming from light. It's the promise from God Himself that the Spirit will testify to our own spirits that we're, number one, His children, but number two, not only are we His children, but we're joint heirs with our brother Christ. And there's something powerful in gaining a testimony about that when you're talking with people that may be drug addicted or alcoholics or going through very hard things in their life, to try to help people from grace to grace, grace from grace, to get them from a position to understand that that is all of our potential because we're all children of God is that's pretty profound. That's just what I wanted to share. I don't know if that kind of answered your, what do I think of this type
You
thing, but
well that when we what tends to speak to people is the idea that we are like the use of the word brother, that we're children of God, so we're siblings, and that we are like, well, like that passage said, that we're not just choosing to suffer with, but like that, I think that phrase implies that we are agreeing to, we're sharing each other's burdens. So
yep,
it's not, because like it's too easy to focus on the word suffering, like, but that's not, but like life is suffering.
yeah,
It's also the corollary is the joy too. So it's not just that we're suffering, but we need the hard times to even recognize the good. But there's another word, and it comes up, I think the first time it's used might be, I don't know if that's true, but there's a place in section 93 where Christ refers to them as his friends. He says, my friends. And he even points out that he says it. He
yeah,
said, and I'm calling you my friends because you are my friends. So what I hear sometimes, and what I used to do, is I used to shy away from the word friend to think about God or to think about Christ, because it's too, well, it lends itself to being too casual. Like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah.
Christ, Jesus is
He's
my
my
buddy.
buddy.
Right.
He's my buddy.
But I think that there's something much, I think it's more than that. And I think that he uses the word not just to be familiar, but that we've talked about this before. Like, if you think about, because I'm often in conversations with people who who are just beginning to even accept the idea that God is even an embodiment of love, that it's not, it's not like a bait and switch, like the love of God, but or that it's some unattainable kind of ethereal love of the, warmth, like that kind of thing. But it's more real, and it's not just more real. It's the only thing that's real. Like,
It's truth. It is reality.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's why we have existence, is what it says here. And that's because if you think about, like, because a lot of people, I can think in terms of a friend. Like, if you think of, because everybody has been or is now at least once in their life had a friend or been a friend, the kind of, like, a best friend, the kind of friend that we've talked, you know what I mean? Like, when you see them, it doesn't matter how much time has passed, you're gonna be right back to, like, talking about the same stuff. You can finish each other's sentences, you light up. time seems to just fly by when you're together. Like they're just
Yep.
excited, and it could be this is a friend, it could be a romantic partner, it could be somebody, it could be a child, like you know what I mean, or it could even be a pet, like the way a pet, people feel pretty. I've had a lot of experiences recently where I have a different like perspective on like the bond that people have with their pets.
Yeah.
But I'm just to describe the like exuberance. You're like, oh, and or there's someone that you love, or that you've been someone that someone else has loved. That there is literally like your children, or like my niece. Like there's not a thing in any existence of anywhere that she could ever do that would make me love her any less. I mean, maybe I wouldn't be happy for a period of time, or maybe there would be things that she'd do that I disagree with, but like, I can't even conceive of the idea of not loving her.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's because that's a good example, because that's not my, well, I don't want to like, what, it's just like someone that's like, that's my family, that's my niece, but it's also kind of like, there's that friendship. So why don't we think about God like that? Like, why don't we think about, and I mean, this is a realization that I've had fairly recently, like, wait a minute, that's literally the Jesus that we're reading about.
Right.
Like, and not just like some very clever depiction on film, or some new way to consider like what day-to-day life might have been like with Jesus. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I like that. Like, I like
Yeah.
that people are, because we're giving respect to the divinity of it, but also like the human. We shy away from talking about Christ in human terms, but Christ specifically went out of his way to be human.
Right.
There's a whole deal. That's the whole.
Right.
That's the whole point. Like, so, and we have to be careful, because it's not like, well, we can't pull from the divinity of it or speak of it like irreverently. But that's not what
Right.
we're talking about. So I think sometimes fear holds us back from considering different ideas of things. Like literally the Jewish woman in the 50s said, she went to a conference. I mean, this is all Wikipedia stuff. It's not like I did any digging. She published her research at the American Association of Astronomers, or whatever it is, and people told her not to do it because she had just had a baby. And she had just given birth, and she had a newborn baby, and went to the conference, and everybody essentially like, they didn't take her seriously. And they even posted, there was even an article in the Washington Post about her, and like kind of like trolling her a little bit, which was, young mother thinks she has new ideas about the universe. Like it's literally a headline. That's the level. So that was an example to me of like, because what I'm identifying with is, I'm the hero of that story is the Vera Rubin, but I'm also identifying with the people stuck in their old ideas. Do you know what I mean? Like,
well, yeah. I mean, the headline in and of itself is, if you read through it and rephrase it a different way, is like, this woman has no idea what she's talking about. She's
go
an
home.
idiot.
Right. Yeah. What are you talking like?
Your stupid mother. Just go take care of your kid. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Or, which is basically a way of saying, okay, that's obviously not true. Like, wait,
Right.
when did I ever become like, so applying that to the idea that God is very like, God is human, or has human characteristics,
Right.
perfect, like complete, but grew from grace to grace the way that we did. He did the process of learning and being corrected perfectly,
Yeah.
but it's not the same as doing something like there was mistakes, because you can't learn if you haven't made a mistake. It's literally learning. Like you can't. So the idea that like I'm not interested in doing something if I can't do it perfectly, that's not. Like I've taken myself out of the game in that sense.
Yeah.
I've
You've already
limited
given up.
myself. Right. And I think we do that all the time.
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I feel like I'm really all kind of all over the place. So I don't know if any of this is cohesive, but like,
No, it is.
Dude, honestly, like I think about this all the time.
Yeah. I mean, that's why Tyson is shooting in consistently below 80s in golf right now. He's invested in a membership at a club. He plays all
Whoa.
the time. And I follow, there's an app called Grint. So every
Grint?
time that, it's called Grint,
Yeah?
Grint. So every time Tyson tees off and goes plays golf, I get notified on my phone and it updates me. It's like Tyson just got a birdie on hole 4, or Tyson just got this on like blah blah blah.
Wow.
And if you look over time, I know this is kind of a stupid example, but
No, this is great.
if you look over time, his numbers have gone from routinely shooting 89, 87, 85. Now it's 79, 78. So I'm telling you right now, if he gets that number down to like 72 sub, like he can file for a PGA card and
He
go,
could be, that's pro-am level.
and he can go do what he wants to do as a dream he's had his entire. I know that for a fact because he's told me. It's like if I had a dream, I'd be a professional golfer. And I'm like, guess what, Tyson? You're getting pretty darn close. Like,
That's
have fun.
pretty amazing, man.
It is. It is really cool.
Wow.
Oh, and I try the same thing as a doctor. I want to learn as much as I can. I want to help people as much as I can. So now I'm seeing a lot of patients that are coming into my office with what they're now calling long COVID, which what we're now discovering is the toll that the spike proteins, whether you get natural exposure to COVID or the vaccine, whether you want to call it a vaccine injury or not, the toll that that protein is taking. And one of the doctors I was listening to today was talking about how the spike protein, what we're now realizing is that it actually docks onto nicotinic receptors inside of your body. And this might be mind blowing and could be a good transition into DNC 89.
Yeah.
But what they're finding is, and there were studies that were actually being done in 2021, so at tail end 2020, 2021,
Yeah.
what they were finding is that people that were getting really sick were having the spike proteins block their nicotinic receptors because all of us in our bodies, believe it or not, accept it or not, that's at least this is what the science is telling us right now,
Yeah.
which I have a tendency to believe as long as it stands true, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that we're all human beings are loaded with endocannabinoid receptors. We're loaded with nicotinic receptors. We're loaded with serotonin receptors and dopamine receptors and all these things. And a big reason why people are falling ill with long COVID is because the spike protein is interrupting the nicotinic receptors inside people's body. Now, when there's and I'll have to dig this up because I do want to provide a reference without just talking out of my butt on this.
Yeah.
But one of the doctors was talking about how there are certain companies, I believe it was actually Pfizer and Moderna themselves, as they were finding that the effect of the spike protein was having on the human body. And at the same time, like these, you know, I would say, pardon my French, I don't want to curse, but like these same companies create the cure while they've also
Oh yeah, yeah,
created
yeah.
the damage. So they create the damage first and then they create the cure.
Right.
And what they were finding was the damage that the spike protein is doing inside the human body. Well, guess what? They were doing in their studies, if it's interrupting nicotinic receptors, guess what the substance was that they were using to interrupt it?
Nicotine.
Nicotine. One thing that we've known for years now at this point is one of the most neuroprotective substances in the human body is actually nicotinamides or nicotine.
Oh,
It is
whoa.
actually extremely, extremely healthy for you if you take it in the right way. You can get
Nicotine.
yep, you can get nicotinamides and niacinamides through your diet. For example, like eating just families of peppers. If you like peppers, you like jalapenos, bell peppers, sweet peppers, whatever.
Right.
If you eat a lot of peppers in your diet, you're actually getting a good load of nicotine inside your dietary intake. And they're finding that folks that deal with Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, now we're finding that this is the same thing that's going along in COVID or long COVID cases. I would say like wink, wink, like, are you still getting all sick? Like sick all the time, right? So it's like,
Yeah. Are
yeah,
you asking
you,
me? I'm getting
right,
sick more. I'm getting sick more frequently than I used to.
right.
But
So what?
it's yeah, yeah.
No, so and you can add to that too. I didn't mean to like single you out or point you out, but
No, no,
we're having this conversation.
we've talked about it on here before.
Right.
Or so it's difficult to the reason it's difficult to separate the data of my life about that specifically is and is that like okay, period of from 2020. So how old was I in 2020? I'm in my early, mid 40s, and now
$43.
I'm in my late 40s,
Right.
and I'm also in a different type of job where I'm around a lot of I'm around way more germs on a daily basis, and
Right.
I'm working in a different way, and so there's lots of factors, and that's why it can mask it. It can be easy to point to something else.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not so much the frequency. I would say probably now. I mean, it's not like overly. It's not. Oh no, actually, what happens now is if I travel, I have to be super careful. If I travel, like road trip or fly, like I know I'm going to get sick
Mm-hmm.
because
It's like inevitable at this point.
like
Like
if I
you're
go,
going to get sick.
man, yeah, kind of. Like
Wow.
I'll go. Why am I sick all of a sudden? I'm like, oh, because I just went to, yeah, I just traveled somewhere different. Like I got around a different set of like germs that I'm not around or whatever. So,
Right.
it's not it's not. I'm identifying with what you're saying, not because of a slight uptick in frequency of illness, but the intensity with which, like, I'll get sick now and I'm like down for like 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, whoa, I'm really sick. And then
Yeah.
like the recovery time's a little longer. So there's that
Right.
too.
Right.
Yeah, for sure that's happening.
So that, I mean, that's why I alluded to this a while back, and we never really got into it, but I had mentioned it, is that in some of the literature, they're actually referring to the conditions that we're seeing as vaccine autoimmune deficiency syndrome, or
Whoa.
VAIDS. So it's like AIDS, but put a V at the beginning, and it's vaccine-induced autoimmune deficiency syndrome. Because something is nasty about the spike protein because it's artificial. It's not natural. And we know that too. We know that right now as a truth. But so what they're finding out now is if you can get nicotinamides or niacinamides in your diet, or even consider doing things like, obviously we're not smoking cigarettes and chewing tobacco and doing all that stuff, but they're literally using nicotine patches, on patients with Parkinson's or XYZ, whatever the condition may
So
be.
nicotine to treat the symptoms of Parkinson's or the
Correct.
onset?
Both.
Whoa.
Halting like neurodegenerative disease, at least in my profession, when I'm meeting with folks that are concerned about either early onset progressive dementia, Alzheimer's, or Parkinson's, the one thing that I've learned in my education is if you can catch it early enough, you can do and make a lot of effort to stop the progression of these diseases from getting worse over time. And talking about like light and truth, it's like, man, I try my hardest, and I try not to like be super preachy to the patients I work with, but it's like, man, I do want you to let you know that I do love you, and because you're here in my office and you're paying good money to see me and visit with me, I want you to know that I'm going to do everything I can in my power to help you. And here are some options that we have, right? And so we get into talking a lot about diet and nutrition, and we
Hmm.
run specific labs. There's a new company I'm considering about using. It's called MyFlora,
Yeah.
and it's a subsidiary of a company that's actually based out of the UK. But in the States now, they have FDA approval to run out these new tests, which is, it sounds funny enough, but it's like a take-home stool sample, kind
Yeah.
of like how we do with Dutch testing for hormone paneling. But this stool sample can actually reveal your gut microbiota and your microflora, and it gives you recommendations on foods you should be eating, foods you should be avoiding, and all these things like that. And I'm finding over time this is incredibly fascinating how it matches up with Section 89 and DNC and what the Lord was teaching us back in 1833 when Emma was so pissed that all the elders and the prophets of the church were spending time up in the school of prophets with their spittoons and their chewing tobacco. like spitting everywhere. And she would have to go back through and clean all this stuff up. It was disgusting.
Yeah.
So I think, per the other records that I've read in the church history, she kind of pulls Joseph aside and says, I'm sick and tired of this. Like, can you talk to the Lord about it and figure out what the heck's going on? And
Yeah.
so I don't know, like before I jump into some specific thoughts I have on 89, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I like studying and discussing Section 89 because I think the
It's
word
super
of,
fascinating.
yeah, the word of wisdom isn't something that's like, we like, no, it's almost like we just don't know how
Mem
to talk about it without being
no,
so
we
overly
don't.
simplistic about it. And it's way more nuanced than that.
And members of our faith are oftentimes ridiculed or made to feel stupid for, oh, you guys can't do this or you can't do that. It's like your
Yeah.
buddies want to take you out to the bar for the weekend. It's like, come on, there's ways we can navigate this. There's ways we can have like intelligent conversations about
Which
this
is,
topic.
as a quick tangent,
Yeah,
there's way more in whatever is entailed with a group of buddies taking their other buddy out to the bars for the weekend. What do you think? Like we've all like you can just picture what that is. Like it
right,
doesn't have to be totally debaucherous, but like going out to the bar, you're gonna stay out too late, you're gonna overindulge. Like it's gonna be, who knows, like let's get wild. You know what I mean?
right.
Like so in that scenario, the going out, come on man, let's go out to the bar. Let's going out late. We're gonna go party.
Because
The
what's the true spirit of that actually?
the
If you
most
really consider it, the true spirit of it is like, brother, I love you. Let's go spend some time together.
oh yeah,
That's what I was getting to, you
that's
know?
what's at the core of it. But then also I was thinking also along the lines of like, all right, we're gonna go party. So like I was thinking like in terms of the reason that like we don't do that or
Right,
we avoid. It's not the most innocuous thing in that whole equation is the alcohol.
right.
That's the least tempting thing in that. Like if it's gonna be a weekend of like, come on man, we're going out, we're gonna get lit tonight, we're gonna go party, we're gonna have a good time. In terms of things that are spiritually damaging, alcohol is just a piece of that. Do,
Yeah,
do you see what I'm saying?
100%.
But but at the core, yeah. So anyway,
No, alcohol is what it is. We know it's a depressant, it's a poison. There's nothing that good comes from it. It's not just the ethanol that you're consuming, it's the acetaldehyde that your body tries to metabolize. That I was reading an article the other day that says, if you're coming home and drinking like 7 to 8, shots of strong drink, whether it's whiskey, vodka, whatever it is that you want, when it finally starts being metabolized by your body, it's almost the equivalent of drinking like a quarter of paint thinner.
oh
Like just do that. Just drink some paint thinner or nail polish remover or whatever. It's like, so we know
right,
alcohol's not good for you, right?
right. But I'm
That's
saying like in terms of there's a more nuanced way to discuss like we don't just abstain from the corrosive agent that is alcohol,
right.
but there's other things that we abstain from, and then and do other things
Right.
that are
Right.
more edifying, uplifting, ultimately more healthy physically, spiritually, holistically.
100%.
Is
100%.
that
You
where you
nailed
were?
that.
Is that where you're headed right
Yeah,
now?
yeah. No, absolutely. Where I'm headed though is this is the part that's, and this was pointed out to me by a buddy a couple of years ago, which I found was fascinating. Which is kind of where I've come to grips with when I have a patient that is trying to ask me about, hey, Dr. O, I'm really wanting to lose some weight. I'm not feeling good. I'm feeling fatigued all the time. I'm not sleeping well. You know, I work, my job's busy. When I have time, I'll go snag some Mickey D's or something like that. It's like, tell me about diet. And this is one thing that I think has been misconstrued, or there is a misconception inside the church, which I will, like, to my grave, I'll stand by this just because of kind of the mind-blowing experience I had when I read through this. So if you open up D&C 89,
Mm-hmm.
first thing I want to do is define punctuation. Um, do you know? So I'll just quiz question real quick. What is the grammatical purpose of a semicolon? So comparative to a
Mm.
colon, a comma, and a semicolon,
It's
what's
a
the
new
purpose of a semicolon?
it's a new thought, right?
Correct.
Is it?
Yes.
Is that right? Yes.
I'll read the definition. So a punctuation mark, semicolon, it indicates a pause, typically between two main clauses, and it's more pronounced than indicated by a comma. So it's not necessarily a new thought. So just to, correct what you just said right there, it's not necessarily a new thought.
Hmm.
It's oftentimes considered a more profound continuation of the previous thought that you had before.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So when you use a semicolon in, at least in the English language, that's how the punctuation works, is you use a semicolon because you're saying, I just made this statement. Now I'm going to use this punctuation to lead into what I'm going to say next is a continuation or an addition, whether it's profound or not, to the previous statement that was made.
That's
Okay.
interesting.
So when you look in,
Hmm.
let's just start with verse 10. So this is section 89, verse
Hmm.
10. And again, verily I say unto you, all wholesome herbs God hath ordained for the constitution, nature, and use of man. And there may be a lot of debate around that too, when you talk about using plant-based medicines,
Hmm.
whether it be in the form of like cannabis or psilocybin or other things like that. I think there's some debate that's going around right now, not necessarily, as I would say, within the church, but members of the church are very kind of like in a nebula when it comes to that. Like, what does an herb mean, right?
Right.
Um, that could actually be a whole topic for another day. Because
Yeah.
when you consider pharmaceutical prescription medications, where do you think those come from? There's
That's not herbs.
Yep, but they're derivatives of the concept of what is this herb used for? How can we make it in a lab, and then how can we pump it out as a drug,
How can we synthesize it?
right? Yep. So I've always liked that because I agree. I think anything that comes from God's green earth that's grown from the earth that He has created for us is pretty darn cool. And that's why I had mentioned earlier, our bodies are created with endocannabinoid receptors, right?
Right.
So again, another topic for another day. But here comes the good stuff. So 11 says, every herb in the season thereof, and every fruit in the season thereof, all these to be used with prudence and thanksgiving. Period. So generally speaking, when I talk to people about diet, I talk to them about if we were to consider a blanket diet, what we may want to think about is a plant-based. If you were to lay out, you know how the pyramid, you remember learning about the food pyramid?
Yeah.
So the base of the pyramid was always your milk, cheese, bread, dot, dot, dot. Like that was it, right?
Grains.
I would flip that because of what we're about to get into. I would flip that and say vegetable ratio to fruit about 4 to 1.
Oh, wow.
Because every herb in the season thereof, every fruit in the season thereof, all these things are to be used with prudence and thanksgiving. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Verse 12. Yea, flesh also of the beasts and the fowls of the air, I the Lord hath ordained for the use of man with thanksgiving, semicolon. Nevertheless, they are to be used sparingly. Now, the end of that verse doesn't end with a period, it ends with a semicolon. So these are now multiple thoughts being put together. So let me just ask you, Kendall, in the history of you growing up learning about the word of wisdom, what have they always told you about meat?
Red meat sparingly.
Eat meat sparingly, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, this is what's super fascinating. So when you look at the link between 12 to 13, it's not carried over from a period, it's from another semicolon. So
Right.
verse 13 says, "And it is pleasing unto me that they should not be used only in times of winter or of cold or famine." Period. So meat is not, it's to be used sparingly, but not in times of cold or winter or famine. They're to be used pretty much year round, to be used frequently. Like
Yeah.
we'd say sparingly, So for example, it may be, and there could be some controversy about this, but like with folks going on the carnivore diet and talking about how it's God's gift to earth where you just eat steak all day long, right?
Right.
But here's the fascinating part. And then I'll turn it over to you and just I want to get your thoughts on this. So 14 says, so a new thought, because we just ended with a period on 13. All grain is ordained for the use of man and of beasts to be the staff of life, not only for man, but for the beasts of the field and the fowls of heaven and all wild animals that run or creep on the earth. Semicolon. And these hath God made for the use of man only in times of famine and excess of hunger.
Meaning everything previously listed in
Right.
14.
In 14, talking about the grains that are ordained for man and beast, right? For the beasts of the field to be used, blah, 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 like this. Semicolon, end of 14. 15 is very profound. And these hath God made for the use of man only in times of famine and excess of hunger.
Whoa.
So if you were to look at that pyramid again, the way that I would shape it and what I'm helping people understand in a clinical basis and what we can actually learn from blood work and labs and all these other cool things is vegetable base, some fruit, I'd say more predominance vegetable over fruit, protein, fat, carbohydrates, and grains that should be at the top because what God's trying to teach us here in verse 15, or at least according to this section, is that grains are literally supposed to be used in times of excess hunger and famine.
I've never heard it taught that way.
So,
I mean, like explain. You know what I mean? It's always
right.
been explained. It's always been explained in the context of the culture and growing up. And there's plenty of articles and podcasts and people much more educated in nutrition than I am, especially in the last couple of years, that talk about the complete incorrect, and not just incorrectness, but the marketing ploy that used to be the food pyramid, the famous food
Yeah.
pyramid, which was really just a way to sell more cereal and
And
corn.
sugar,
Oh, I watched a documentary.
corn syrup, cereal,
I watched a
grain.
documentary the other night on this is definitely a different topic, but like on the rise of Monsanto
Yeah. Talk about evil.
and Roundup kill, the oh my gosh, dude. Like, and I've known it, like I'm not totally naive, but like it was a really good video, a really good documentary, and unbelievably, like, yeah, like, so anyway, this was always taught, like, for some reason, because I don't know, who knows why, maybe we weren't ready to see it, but everything was like, we used to just accept things, like, if it's on the news, like, the news isn't going to lie. And
Right.
which honestly, like, in hindsight, is pretty naive, because even like, and I'm not here to be anti-news and all revolutionary, but like, we're talking about finding and seeking truth. Like, why would I put a whole, like, I'm not saying we shouldn't listen to the news, but anything that's driven by advertising dollars from the very beginning, like,
Right.
it's a punchline now to talk about the, like, when TV, radio turned into TV, and then there was like there was health ads about cigarettes. Like, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? Although
Yeah.
it turns out, I mean, we like nicotine's always been, but like, and certain, like, certain things suppressed so that a company could make money on another product. Do you know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, oh man, like, gosh.
Yeah. When you dig into the history of the Rockefellers and how even medical schools started and how the progression of the structure of medicine and how it's taught and things like that. There's corruption abound, and that's one thing that I think per like going way back in the conversation that we've started in trying to distinguish between light and truth and listen to certain opinions and using that gift of discernment to like, can I trust what this person is actually saying? Are they actually speaking truth to me? Can the spirit confirm that what I'm hearing, what I'm learning is true? And things like that. But sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
What were
I
you going
mean
to
my
say?
mind, and don't just yeah. By the way, my mind is blown by the lesson of the parable of the semicolon.
Yeah.
I don't know why I never knew that. I mean,
It's pretty
I just
wild though.
probably learned it grammatically, but then that's the other thing that's interesting about like if you if you dive in and study the words that are on the page, just the words that are on the page, and that was the experience that I had with section 93. Like like I was really working to think about practical, what's a practical app? Like I can get, anybody can get up there and talk about the beauty of the light of the love of the universe of Christ, of grace, and grace is truth. Great. Yes. But what is it? Like it was described to me recently that I'm a high context learner. So basically that's a fancy way of saying I need an example. Or if I'm teaching, I want to give an example. Like I go, oh, that's what that means. Or that's what I think it means. Here's what it also implies that there's like a learning mindset. So if I'm I'm like, oh, I think it means this. But then when more truth is revealed and you go, oh, I've been reading that wrong my entire life. Am I going to be so stuck and attached to old emotions
Right.
that I'm gonna go, all right, like, am I gonna get, because it's like that kind of like just I don't want to look at something new that I've read a million times because that's my pride. That's just pride and ego getting in the way.
Right.
Like I can't admit like that I didn't know the true purpose of a semicolon, the literally the language. And I'm saying that I can't do this if I'm not careful. Like my pride will very easily go, don't tell me, like I've been speaking English my whole life. Well, it could be that I've been speaking it incorrectly. Like,
Right.
or I don't understand the finer points of it. And you don't have to be like overly intellectual to see more
Well,
truth. But
my
yeah,
my battle with all of that was I guess I would look back now, like even before I got into,
it's amazing.
the medical world, is the battle I had was like, but like God created the beasts and the fowls for consumption. Yes, I understand they're supposed to be used sparingly. The crux of that, when it was broken down to me, when it was actually showed to me, was 12 and 14, verses 12 and 14. They kind of give you he gives you the premise, like I have created these things for you. And really the coolest part about that whole section now, whenever I look at it, is verses 13 and 15, and the way that it's broken down and described of here's 12, here's 13, and this is what it should be used for. Here's 14, and now here's 15, and this is what it should be used for. You know? And
Yeah.
that just blew my mind. And when I learned that, at least for me, there was a very spiritual connection. And now that I've worked so many years in a clinical setting of people that I've dealt with chronic illness, with autoimmune diseases, with XYZ, just sick people, the pattern makes sense. And I guess I would just say it that way, is it makes sense now. What is being taught in 89, when you actually take into consideration punctuation, the literal English use of a semicolon, how that carries one thought to another, and you consider verse 12, 13, 14, and 15 together, that creates what I've at least noticed in adhering to it the way that I've described it to you tonight, is where I see health and abundance and people really start to thrive, which is like really cool. So I just wanted to break that down for you and give you something to ponder on.
Yeah, we're gonna need to talk more about it and dive more into it more
Yeah.
because now that because like this could be, yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's awesome. Like,
Just think of a preservation standpoint. How long or how hard is it if you were to, let's say, we're back in the 17 1800s, we go out and we kill a deer, or we get a harvest.
right.
How easy is it to preserve a meat source
I
versus
mean,
how
I don't even have any idea. You know what I mean?
right? Well, I'll tell you, it's very hard, and there's super intricate ways you could do it, but
Oh
again,
my
it
gosh.
doesn't beat what you get from the actual harvest of the animal to consuming that animal almost on an immediate usage, I guess you could say, versus how easy is it to, even nowadays, you go to the store, buy a bag of rice or a bag of wheat, you could throw that in your garage for till you're in famine
Yeah, you put
or
that
in time of need, right?
in time of need of famine or excess hunger.
Yep.
Man, that's crazy.
So that was just something I wanted to share, give you a little clinical insight, something I've been thinking about for a while. I actually over the years had been given opportunities to talk about the word of wisdom, and to me, back in the day, again, before kind of my introduction to clinical science and medicine was I need to be talking about no drugs, no alcohol, no tobacco, right? These things like the rules that I was always taught as a kid, because that's what the word of wisdom is. Like my comprehension and insight on the word of wisdom is completely shifted.
Well, it also like not to put this is going to sound simplistic and maybe incorrect, and I don't mean that. I don't mean it like this. Like the word of wisdom is because what we're talking about is the words on the page, and when we mean the words on the page in section 89, like that's the voice, that's the Lord's, voice,
Hmm.
and that means it's true, and that's revelation. So, if, like again, if this is true, what else is true? It doesn't say alcohol. I mean, we know what I'm not making a case for alcohol, but what I'm saying is
Right.
that I'm using that as a ineloquent
It
analogy for
says
like,
strong drink, and they
yeah,
and they call it hot drinks, right? So it doesn't
meaning,
even it does say coffee or tea. It says hot drinks,
yeah, so
strong
that
drinks and hot drinks.
all of the things that I think it means and all of the rules that I think it's implying, not necessarily incorrect, but it's not, but that's kind of detracting from the greater message of what it actually says.
Hmm.
And what it actually says is, in the context of if the whole book of the Doctrine and Covenants is anything that can be described like really simply, it's a pattern. It's not just questions and answers. The early founders of the church and the early spiritual, like the Joseph Smith and it's not just questions and revelations, but it's questions and then more questions and then reprimands and corrections and then more questions. So it's the pattern to ask better questions to
And
get
it was literally originally called the Book of Commandments,
right, right. Yeah.
you know?
Like this is how meaning I can read it, then there's always more. And it could it be possible that there's just more truth beyond what I think that I've just assumed? And how much of my life am I of my belief systems that drive my everyday interactions with people, how much of that is kind of based on slightly, I'm not saying that my whole life is a lie, that's not it at all, but in terms of like, oh, there's more to change, and the way that I change it or seek to become willing to change it and find that there's tons of I have if like what you've just described here is like looking at the so above my room here, I can if I stand out in the street, I can see the Big Dipper. I've looked
Hmm.
at it many nights, and there's what? How many stars make up the Big Dipper? 8, 9? I don't know. A couple. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Is it
Yep.
7?
7.
Okay. And then in the middle of those are the stars that have always been there. They've always been there, and we could go back many hundreds of thousands of years, and those stars we've always been able to see them because they're the brightest. But then there's these big chunks of darkness, and it just looks like the like, oh, so that's just dark. Well, except that it's not. Like there's
Yeah.
what dark represents. Can represent a lot of things. What it represents is the absence of truth. So the reason that darkness often turns into a breeding ground for evil or confusion, or gets associated with like the dark, like a dark feeling or a darkness in a room, or a person's got a dark spirit, whatever, that's implying that there's something absent and that's been filled with something that shouldn't be there, or that there's that there's an influence that is meant to deter from the light, except that when correctly applied, the great, like, that's where the, if suffering leads to joy, because going through the suffering helps us to even recognize the joy. If we have to know the good from the evil, we have to pass through sorrow. Like in Genesis, it says we have to pass through sorrow. You know what I mean? That's an interesting word. That word really gets me sometimes. I'm like, sorrow. Like, we go through that kind of emotional suffering so that we can become refined in recognizing the greater and greater opportunities and our capacity for more joy increases.
100%.
So that's all that we're really talking about in terms of, and if like this is just one example of, if the word of wisdom is this thing that I've assumed that it's the Mormons don't drink alcohol, and Mormons don't do drugs, and Mormons, you know what I mean? Like, that isn't even anything really. Like, that's just like, it's lame.
Or have you ever felt shame? Like, have you ever had someone make fun of you or shame you for, oh, you're eating too much meat? I could tell you I've heard that in my lifetime. It's like, oh, you guys eat that much meat?
Yeah.
You're not supposed to eat that much meat. The word of wisdom says so.
Oh, yeah. It's like
holy
this
smokes.
weird.
Hey, and guess what? The Big Dipper isn't actually a cup. It's supposed to be a big bear. It's called Ursa Major. It's not the Big Dipper, right? It's all about perspective.
Right. Is it supposed to be a bear?
It's a bear. It's a big bear. It's called Ursa Major.
I knew. Is it?
Look it up.
Oh my gosh.
The Big Dipper is Ursa Major, and there's Ursa Major and Ursa Minor. Ursa Major is the big bear, is the Big Dipper. Ursa Minor is the little bear. Which is the little dipper.
So you're saying?
So it's not a ladle. It's not
a big ladle in the sky.
It's a bear.
Oh my gosh. No, I'm getting skincare ads.
And guess where? And guess where the Big Dipper always points? Which is actually a fixture on one of the facing walls of the temple in Salt Lake City. There's a constellation structure of the Big Dipper that is put on, I want to say it's the east-facing wall of the Salt Lake Temple. And where they put it constructionally on the temple is actually to astronomical dimensions, always actually pointing towards the North Star.
The Great Bear. Ursa Major points to the North Star?
Yep. The end of the ladle always points to the North Star. That's why Ursa Major has always been such an important constellation, because it points to the North Star. And the North Star is unchanging, constant, and has been used by travelers since the dawn of time as a point of reference. And there's a reason why I believe our wise leaders have actually put that on the Salt Lake Temple. There's literally the constellation of Ursa Major on the Salt Lake Temple because it points directly to the North Star.
I don't know if I've ever seen that.
It's pretty cool.
On the Salt Lake Temple.
And these things happen, Kendall, because they're supposed to. Like, I literally I was doom scrolling during my lunch break through like Instagram, and this little video popped up that taught me that today. And I looked it up and I verified it. It's like legit. There's the constellation of the Big Dipper is on the Salt Lake Temple, and
I had no idea.
They put it in the exact spot because where they put it on the temple always points to the North Star. It's pretty rad.
Dude.
Right?
What?
That's some cool stuff.
That's amazing.
That's some really cool stuff. So.
Wow. I'm really glad that you decided to share that. That's amazing. I didn't know that. Semicolons?
Semicolons mean something.
Bears?
Big Dipper's North Star. Temple. Light and truth.
Yeah.
I got my 4, so light and truth are 2 thumbs up.
And the Grint. I'm gonna follow Tyson Fujikawa on Grint.
Do it. If download the app, I swear you add him as a friend, you can watch exactly how he plays golf every single day, which he almost does every day, which
That's
is mind
amazing.
blowing. And he's getting really good. So I'm intimidated because when I'm supposed to play him, there's no shot I will ever beat that guy. So
Man,
because I don't put the time in. I'm not as dedicated as he is to that craft.
he loves it. He
He loves
loves
it.
it.
Loves it.
I don't know anyone. I've never met anyone that loves golf more than him. Like he loves it.
It's awesome.
It's good, but yeah,
It's awesome. Okay.
this is great.
I love it. I
I'm
love you, brother.
gonna. I love you, brother. I'm gonna call you. I'm gonna call you tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Yeah. Here, I'll do this. Like when I'm getting close to finishing with like my last patient, I'll just shoot you a text and then you call me anytime after that.
Okay.
Okay.
Great, man.
All right, my man. Love you.
Love you too.
Bye.